California, my own home state, and I'm super excited. We were just in Philadelphia last week. I think this is our 15th city this year, 16th city this year. We get a little jet lag. So we've been doing this for quite a while. You're going to find, if you take a look at your workbook, that we developed sort of a bridge of change of how schools need to move.
It's not on. There.
So we developed this sort of bridge of change so schools and districts can understand how to get to sort of a nirvana of survival in digital transition. So I'm going to explain all of that to you. But we're going to go through that. Right now we're at a certain stage, talking about a little ahead of the nation's curve in terms of what the maturity point is. Most schools are just starting to get really worried about analytics because they've sort of face planted into so much software. But we're going to talk about analytics today. We're going to do a couple workshops on it. Okay? Learning Counsel, we've been all over the country for, this is our 5th year, meeting with schools and districts and talking about this transition backed up from a media position and also research. That's who the Learning Counsel really is. And because we sit in the middle between the entire vendor community and all the schools and districts with over 215,000 readers, we sort of get a view to everything. It feels like I'm doing about 20 calls a month of people just doing show and tell to me over the phone and Skype and GoToMeeting, right? Showing me what their software does. So I've probably seen more software in K-12 and some of it higher ed than just about anyone on the planet. So while we've been doing that, we developed, like I said, this bridge. We started with talking about real strategy because the first thing schools do is they throw a bunch of devices in. That's just a tactic. It doesn't really change anything. It's just sort of, we're going to be digitized instead of digital. When you go really digital, it's a different mindset. You're actually changing your operations. That's what's happened in every other industry. Why wouldn't it happen here? But there's a lot of resistance to that. So then we talked about tactics. There's a couple of different special reports that you'll find on our website. One is about what are the definitions of terms when you start looking at software, because it's really kind of hard to understand. Like, what's the difference between a business intelligence engine and true artificial intelligence, which, by the way, doesn't exist yet in education, and an avatar, which is something you like dress up, and a character in software, which is like Mickey Mouse greeting you at the door saying, "Hi kids, let's do math," right? Two different things. And all those definitions of terms, we're now up to 106. A bunch of educators sort of took away that special report from us. We had 71 in there when we began. They sort of took it away. People from all over the country and said, there's more to do here, so they started adding to it. Now we reissue it every year. And then people start having trouble being sustainable. There's so much change at the teacher level, and it's all concentrating there, that people start to sort of wig out. It's too much, right? You're asking me to do everything I used to do, took my books away from me. Now I got to build every single lesson plan for 1,000 different standards in my grade by myself. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. So they hit this wall of unsustainability and riots in the streets, basically. So then they hit analytics. Because like I said, there's all this stuff coming at you. Too much. We were just talking about that this morning. It's like, yeah, it's too much stuff hitting me. So then they go into a phase of redesigning. And some of the most advanced schools in the country are already here, where they realize they're delivering so much via digital that they can change their physical structure, their schedule, and the entire delivery mechanism. We're heading into that soon. This is the point of real change, where you walk into the school and it's beanbag chairs and lounges and cubicles and way fewer classrooms. This is happening. What's really interesting about it to me is the fact that education in the early parts of the last century shifted to structure itself like the manufacturing era, right? Things moving along the assembly line like cars did, manufacturing kids by grade, and bells, you know, just like the lunch bell at the manufacturing plant. What's happening now, and this makes it very clear, so you can see this, is that schools are starting to mutate to look like corporate America and Silicon Valley. You've been in some of the buildings around here, right? Very different. Why? Because you can untether the learning mechanism, the delivery of the knowledge from only human centricity, right? It doesn't have to be only teacher-centric. For a lot of things, you have to have a lot of teachers, and Dr. Cauthen and I have looked at the numbers. We think that this market's going to double in total number of teachers, but they won't have the same title. It'll be totally different titles, and we're going to talk about that today. So, by the time, by the way, you get to the Expo Center of Learning, the reason for the Expo, which is experience, right? It's like going to Disneyland, is because if you can do all of your learning at home in your pajamas, why do you need to go? There's parents here in Silicon Valley that both work from home and the kid leaves. Does this seem weird to you? We have people realizing that for the last 150 years, they've lost all sense of family continuity. They've given up by going in every single direction. And there are parents now that are homeschooling who say, I watched what happened with my family. We were never together, except on holidays. Seems a little odd, right? If you really think about it, that's a little strange. So why aren't we ever together? Well, because we're taking you apart. If you're a family with 3 different kids in 3 different schools in your area, different ages, you're never home. You're running around everywhere, right? People don't want that. They want quality of life. They want quality experience. And they think that just now past the tech age, they should have that. So the expectation is that if you get there, it better be a reason that's good enough to actually get out of your jammies and go. What's good about going to school? Is it so high experience that it just totally trumps the use of your device? It better be. You better have robotics and art labs and video editing labs and all kinds of sports and all kinds of things that are a reason to be there together. Like we're doing here today, we're going to be doing projects together, we're going to be talking to each other. I'm not walking into a classroom like I've done when I visited classrooms in different parts of the country where I'm walking in and all the kids are on their screen. We had Howard County back on the East Coast that said after they deployed a lot of devices, their incidence of Facebook use went way up. And it wasn't the kids. It was the teachers. Why? Because the teacher's like, oh, okay, I can let go and let these guys do whatever they're going to do in the devices. And they just didn't get it that what they're supposed to be doing is let them do all the online reading and learning in homeroom or homework, and then when you're in class, you're doing things together, right? Doing something like that. Right now, and this is important data for you to have, the United States has been driving down what they spend on non-digital curriculum. And what they're spending on digital curriculum has been skyrocketing. The higher ed numbers, not so much. Higher ed is still very professor-centric. They do a lot of lecture capture. And that's really all they want to do, and they don't want to move off that. And you can tell they're kind of on their knees right now because they haven't really changed. K-12, on the meantime, has gone to $6.6 billion being spent at the district level, $3.1 billion at the school level, $9.7 billion market. It used to be flipped 5 years ago when we started on this road trip. Schools were spending the bulk of money on digital curriculum, and the superintendent, the district level, was spending much less. So what happened is they started to realize that the average teacher has 75 logins. Just try to corral, 30 third graders with that many logins. See how much you get done during your day, right? Well, it's not going to work. So districts have been reining in all the control. They had it when they had books. When they were issuing textbooks, every 6th grade math teacher got the same textbook. It's not like everybody got to do all their own stuff. But then somehow when we moved to digital, it was like free-for-all. And when you go for a free-for-all, from a leadership position, you lose all continuity of operations. Your prediction on whether or not learning is going to work is gone. So actually reining that in is what everybody's been having. And then what's happening at the district level is they're like, whoa, we have how many math programs? How many language programs? We got to do some analysis and figure out what's going to actually work, right? So then that takes like a year to figure all that out. In the meantime, You ask a lot of superintendents in this country, what are you spending on digital curriculum? They actually don't know. They have no idea. Why? Because they let the budgets down to the schools in many instances, and that's untraceable. It's block granted down. But at the district level, just have them take a list, go through the procurement manager, and the average is 100 or more programs with a lot of overlap. Why? Because you have to look. You have to get into the software and look and go, what is this doing? What standards does it cover? What are we actually doing? Oh wait, this covers 4th through 6th in math, and this one covers 5th through 8th. We've got some overlap there. What are we going to do? Let's go negotiate. Better deal. Because we're not really using all this. Or we're going to overlap, and that's a problem, right? There's the growing concern, though, in the market is really interesting. It's the disaggregation and dispersal of the market into 1 million digital bits. It's atomizing from the book, scope, and sequenced form down to little bits and pieces. Google Docs, like Office 365, right? So we've gone from schools and teachers using some consumer-grade adaptive digital curriculum to a lot of free open education resources, loose documents, and their learning management systems, which are very necessary. And then the old guard publishers have mostly gotten smaller. I mean, we just all saw Pearson got sold off, right? We don't know what's happening with them. And they've all been losing 10,000 employees at a time, the big companies. In the meantime, 7,000 new companies in the digital curriculum field. It's just the Wild West, right? And that doesn't even include the app markets. The crossroads is the fact that the direct-to-consumer retailing with Teachers on Tap and companies like Mathnasium opening 750 stores, selling the quality experience of achievement at math, is totally sweeping the nation's attention away from schools. And then you've got big business and consumer-grade courseware, apps, and online. So companies like ABC Mouse have $1 billion market cap. They're going to go to full 12th grade this year. I've been to their headquarters. They have huge cubicle farms of nothing but animators. You don't have that. You really can't build like they can build. You don't have algorithm producers who can sort of go, if this question's not answered correctly, then we shunt the kid back to more raw content, or we gate them forward, and they're going to go up here, da-da-da-da-da. When Memphis Public Schools ungated in their math software, as Shelby County, they had kids completing calculus in 9th grade. When Cleon Franklin used to talk to us about this, he got pretty emotional. He felt like, we've been holding kids back for 100 years. No, you've been holding some of them back to keep them in the manufacturing pattern. When you do that, you're out of sync with the expectation culturally now of on-demand, instantly, Amazon's going to give me a box within 2 hours on my front doorstep. They'll personalize. The expectation by culture right now is 100% custom fit to me, right? We're not doing that at all in education. A little bit, IEPs. We personalize, which really means tweaking the lesson slightly for a few different learning levels in the class. But it's the same lesson. That's not personalization. It's not what the software industry calls personalization. That's tweaking. Not a very positive sounding word, but it's true. So what's happening right now, and this is why we get on this roadshow tour, we feel like Paul Revere, they're coming, right? Is that the consumer markets are spending $15 billion a year on direct purchase of digital learning things. That doesn't include textbooks. So they're just finding it randomly. ABC Mouse, app here, thing there, blah, 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 subscription over here. Brain pop, right? A lot of companies in this space. 20% compound annual growth rate. Versus the United States market, 19.7 million. We're pretty proud of that, right? That's pretty groovy. Like, we've really gotten our act together. We're getting there. 5% compound annual growth rate. But you know what this is? At this growth rate like this and this one like this, what is that? Do you see that? That's Amazon against the retail industries 10 years ago. That's what it is. So when we got on the road, we said, listen, education needs to go through a transition. It needs to do it really quickly, because otherwise you're going to be marginalized. You don't see it coming. Many arguments instantly pop into your mind. Let me tell you what you're thinking right now. That's not going to work for the little kids. Of course not. I don't really know what's gonna really happen. I'm just showing you the data, right? And I'm having you look and observe the truth of the culture around you. I'm in a lot of airports with David Kafitz a lot, like him and I are getting around. Do you see a lot of people just sitting there chatting with each other anymore? No, they're like this, on their phone. Everywhere you go. It's dominating our attention. So, consumerization is the act of making something desirable and consumable by the individual directly. In this market, we call it personalization. It's actually more properly termed individualization. Because in the software industry, personalization means something you do for yourself. You pick out the avatar clothing, right? Whether or not it's going to have blue hair. Individualization is what somebody does to somebody else. The hardware space is 17.1 billion. That's big iron software like learning management systems, software systems, hardware, networks. We're a long ways from completion of our network bandwidth for schools right now, and it needs to be built out redundantly far deeper because kids are coming to school with 3 devices or more. Our digital survey this past year in 2017, showed that all these items in yellow popped up into the top 10 for the first time. So the market is accelerating in transition, okay? But here's what's interesting. Analytics and tracking wasn't even in the top 10 last year. It wasn't even in the top 20. So we've exactly correctly predicted on the scale what was going to happen to the market. Every year we predicted this. It was so funny, like 3 years ago in Tampa, they said, our big problem now is sustainability. We can't keep this up. We're not built for this. We don't have people analyzing all this curriculum all the time. Like Houston ISD has 3 full-time people just vetting apps for teachers. Full-time. Is it secure? Is it going to steal our data? What's happening, right? Most districts can't afford that. So we're now in the stage of analytics, but look at what we have our attention on. Increased student engagement. Why? Because we're not where they're at. They're here in their phone. And we're somewhere else. So, the issues that are preventing adoption from a longitudinal view hitting 2017 was, right now, everybody's going into digital curriculum training. So the traditional PD that we're doing is not only not shifting the leadership to understand context, but it's not shifting at the teacher level to make them understand software at the most basic levels, right? It's like, here's a login, see ya. Good luck with yourself. Sometimes that works. San Diego had a school district where the central office just ran by and gave everybody logins, and nobody wanted to use it. They didn't dare press their teachers to do anything because the teachers would kind of freak out. They're like, no, we'll insurrect. It's not going to work. But one or more teacher kind of got into it. They started using it in the back of the course for kids that were really fast at math, and they're like, go play the game, blah, blah, blah. And then they had to get in there and grade stuff. Totally got into the software and started using it for core. That was awesome. Good story. Doesn't work with everybody. Sometimes you gotta tell, not ask. There's very few industries where you ask everybody that's at the delivery line, the front line, what do you want to do? Let's make sure every single thing you want to do is totally yours to do. Can you name one other than education? No. It's an interesting dynamic though, right? So, 88% of schools expect digital curriculum spend to go up. So we're right in the middle of this storm. And nobody can really make sense of it because, like I said, this math covers grades 2 through 5, and this one covers 4 through 6, and then there's nothing for social studies, but we got science stuff, we got la, 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 la. Just try to figure out your curriculum map. 0% of schools, though, now cite they allow teachers to purchase without oversight. Okay, so 37% are using a mix. They do ask their teachers, do you think this is groovy? Should we buy it? No, yes. But 0% are allowing teachers to just do whatever they want on their own. Okay, this is really hard, like guys like you, where you have a matrix, mosaic, sort of everybody's, and then you're trying to bring it all together. That's the typical district too. Because of this lack of flipping to an institutional view of delivery. right? It's a lettingness rather than a leadingness. And that's what's going to have to be different in tech transition. So, very few schools are using all free. A significant number are mostly using paid resources. This is a really big change in about a year and a half. And the reason for it is that people are discovering that open education resources are great because they're free, but this is the kind of stuff that can happen. Every teacher building every single lesson plan using non-animation, no algorithms, nothing fun about it. It's a document, it's a video, or some widgety little thing, and the link is going to break. Here's another liability. Somebody has the link go dead. A year later, you go to access that. The URL has moved back into the general pool. Somebody else bought it, and now it's a porn site. Yay for you, right? It's going to be awesome when the parents find out about that. So you have a lot of liabilities, right? When you're trying to do everything on your own. Did you do everything on your own when there were textbooks? No. Why are you doing it now? I'm not saying you should just buy everything. I'm saying you better look at the continuity of operations. You better look at what you're really having people do, because you can break people by making them do everything, right? So the percent of teachers are using predominantly digital content and curriculum resources up, way up. And the use of digital curriculum content as a percentage of the school day, 50% of teachers nationally are using it a quarter of the day. Teachers online search for lesson materials, 26% are spending from 4 to 10 hours a week. Now this isn't just Googling around, binging around, it's also overly nested systems. Nesting in the software industry means you navigate to the main menu and then define the one little math thing that you need. It's like branch down to find it. Did you ever have fun with your own filing? Trying to find stuff? Oh yeah, I know that document somewhere. I know I saved it. Maybe it's in the cloud, maybe it's on my desktop, I don't know. How much time should you really let yourself have to do that when you got 30 kids in the room? This is what's happening all over America. And then you do everything in Google Docs, super fun. And then you lose that teacher. Is the next teacher going to understand the former teacher's filing mechanisms? No. Again, it's a continuity of operations issue, right? So this searching isn't just Googling around for stuff, which is super fun, but really not something that you really want happening when what you really need to be doing is creating the excitement of live interaction. A reason to be there, right? I see you. I'm on to you. Let's talk, right? That's more fun than teachers ignoring us while we like course off in the back of the room. The hours per week instructors spend building their own digital learning, 46% are spending from more of 4 to 10 hours a week. We had a Boston superintendent do the math on this. We're like, how much is this costing? What's your average salary? Let's do the math. It's in the millions of dollars. Just buy them the stuff, is what we said. Well, again, free is great. Free is awesome. And right now, in the digital curriculum universe, when we go through how people are doing curriculum mapping, which is what we were teaching our second year on the road, how to build a full digital map, right? You can't get to a full coverage model unless you build some stuff yourself. You can't. Some states have to teach their state history, and there are no publishers that are going to do that because it's too small of a market, right? So there's some stuff that you're always going to have to do yourself, but you can create a pretty good map knitting together everything on your, that's already, it's the good stuff. And then you have somebody else's neck to choke, which is awesome, right? Because they're leveraging it across multiple districts. So the top 5 teacher issues: too much testing. Yes. I just did an article that's on our site right now about how this industry is shifting to a software construct. The standards are like little lines of code, like a developer or programmer instructs a machine. Testing is like quality assurance, also a software issue, right? And between that, big empty hole of how we're going to get from here to here. A lot of crosswalking, curriculum mapping, everybody's duplicating effort all over the country. It's wild. But there will be companies who map the whole thing in a completely individualized way. Teachers are also unaware of application and digital content. They're overwhelmed. They have inadequate or aged devices. Too many systems to interact with. Hopefully Cauthen's going to talk to you guys about this. I knew. So this is what they're dealing with. This is a recipe for disaster. This is like Mean Girls as executives. Like, why are we doing this to people? Number one solution in the United States today, single sign-on. 30-some% are currently shopping for that. Why? Because like I said, the average teacher has 75 logins. So, the method to manage digital content, most schools are not going with an LMS yet. They're maturing up this hill and they're seeing that they're going to need one, but right now they're just like, documents are cool, like so 20 years ago for the rest of corporate America, but documents are super awesome in education. It's really kind of funny. The growth spots, digital courseware, obviously, special needs, K through 5, and comprehensive PD. I think Zia's in the room today. So there's a little point right here at the teacher level where the rubber hits the road that's missing in terms of their PD. So we brought Zia to here to talk to you guys today about that. So let's share. How does your school district compare with all this trend data I just showed you, and what are you doing to adopt? And how are you figuring this all out? Either at the school level or the district level, doesn't matter. Okay? You're stunned into silence. Okay, I'm going to call on somebody. That's the way we roll. Who wants to comment first? Go.
We're not there yet. Basically, there's no start. We're basically just trying to introduce it to our adult schools and to let them know that this is an option. Right now, it's kind of inherited from the K-12. Oh, here are leftover textbooks. Move it on to adult ed. No, use what you need to use. So it's all over the map, kind of like what you were saying. There's no way to get them all together to say this is what we're using, because California everybody's doing their own thing.
It's messy.
It is.
And it's a big state. It's a huge state. I mean, it's interesting for us because we have more of a statewide perspective. And, we know a few shining stars around the state, but there's whole parts of the state, I mean, we just have no sense of where anybody is with their, down at that level that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the local control issue doesn't really work in the tech paradigm. It worked really well in the industrial age because it's like local custom manufacturing. But when you move to something that's run by software across networks, if this one's running this software and this one's running this software and there's no API, right, integration, interoperability, you got gridlock. So as we shift from the one reality to a different reality, we're also hitting the unworkability of the model. The model is going to have to shift. And that's where we're headed as a country. We had Atlanta tell us when we were back there earlier this year that they had 2 high schools that shut down on Friday. They just don't have Fridays. And Friday is the day all the kids do online learning and the teachers catch up with all their grading and reviewing of the analytics and figuring out how they're going to get Johnny to do what he's supposed to do next week. So we're seeing model shift all over the nation because this is not just, let's put devices in and some software, it's going to be awesome. This is a structural shift. It literally is, and if you don't start to think that way from a leadership level, you're going to wreck the machine, right? Because you just keep piling stuff on. And then it's like, whoa, what's happening? The teachers all want to quit. Why? What's happening? So we're in a really interesting time. So we just wanted to set the stage for you guys on this, right? And then we're going to do workshops and we're going to call up our different companies to do a little show and tell with you. We think it's really important that you see it. It's one of the reasons we got on this roadshow tour is you need to see what software is really doing, because when you see it, you kind of go, oh, yeah, I see that now. I see how that changes the roles and responsibilities a little bit. So cool? Good? Thank you, guys.